Hi, this is Experts on Talks. My name is Olga and this is Pavel. Experiences? You wanted to say something.
No. I didn't know if you were going to introduce me or I'm going to introduce myself.
You can introduce yourself.
Okay, so I am Pavel. I am head of design at Liki Mobile Solutions. And I am here today to talk with Olga about some user experience problems and principles.
So let's watch intro. So let's start to talk about user-centered design. So what is user-centered design and what are the main principles of it?
Well, basically user-centered design is an approach that you have where you involve users from the very beginning stages of the design development. Mm-hmm. So the users are present from the very beginning to the very end. And one of the principles there is to get familiar with the context in which users will use your application. Because like every application basically must satisfy a certain needs that we have. For example, like a smartphone. Smartphone actually satisfies a lot of needs that you have in everyday life, basically. On the other hand, for example, when you have mobile banking app that allows you to transfer money, it satisfies your needs to transfer money. So it is very important on the early stages to, when you, for example, have an idea for the application and you want to do it in a user-centered way, you must get to know what the users will actually want from your application. What is the context in which they will use this application? So basically, with that context, and personas and empathy and all of that, you can start trying to get what the users want and how to perhaps make it in an application, and then you gather this user feedback. Is this what you want? Is this how you think it will be worth your time, this application?
I have a fast question. Can I?
Yeah, sure.
How does it differ from just UX? User experience?
Well, basically, user experience is the experience that the user has while he's working with your application. Like he's working your application in some sort of way, or he's just using your application, and the user experience is the experience that the user has with this application. So this is probably when the application is already being used. However, if you don't do it in the user-centered way, you're not exactly sure whether this user will use it. So, because his first user experience will be that I don't need this, because you failed to hit those needs that the user has, or he will use it in a completely different way. Like for example, there was this young guy, I think he was 16 at the moment, in Poland. He created an app for hip hop users, hip hop listeners, that would recognize all the signs that hip hoppers use for some time and stuff like that. And he used it for this purpose. But what turned out actually is that people who are using sign language started to use it. So somebody found it and appropriated it in my own way. He didn't make it for those people. He made it for entire different group of people. But there's another group of people that just found this application and said that, okay, this is great, I can use it for my own needs. So this is one of these needs. He didn't use it in a user-centered way. He just thought it would be cool. But user-centered way would be when you actually go and see what is the need of those users and talk with them throughout the whole process, then design this application, talk with them again, see what works, what doesn't. This is iterative process. You talk with the users, you clarify all the needs, everything, you design this, and then after you design this, you show this to the user to get the feedback, user testing, all of that, and then you go back again to talking to in-depth interviews.
It's endless flow, right?
Yeah, not endless, because it ends it has end when all the user needs are actually satisfied. Mm-hmm. And along that, of course, you have business needs that also must be in some way satisfied. So you need to work closely with business people who are responsible for the success of this operation, of this application, on more financial sometimes aspects, that app actually has to sell something, for example.
If we don't use this approach, we will not ask our users what they want to see, and how does it work?
You mean like if you don't use it at all, do you ask users still?
No, if I'm not using user-centered approach,
yeah.
but any other. But I will still ask my users, right?
Then you'll be using user-centered approach, sort of. Like basically, you can of course ask user and use maybe quite different approach. Like for example, Apple doesn't ask their users anything. They do something what is called like genius design. They just design and give it to people. So they don't use user-centered design, and they don't ask people their opinion about it. On the other hand, when you are actually asking users what do they want, you are making user research, personas, you're creating all this holistic approach to your design like development, then you simply are using user-centered design. Of course, if you are talking to users but you ignore their opinion because you think that the business team must be satisfied and user don't, then of course it wouldn't be user-centered design.
It will be user ignoring design.
UID, yes, user ignoring design. So yeah, basically that's it. That's when you just, if I would have to put what is user-centered design in one sentence, it would be like having user involved in the design process throughout, from the very beginning till the very end. They are involved in this process. That would be like in one sentence. Principles, there are like many people write their own principles. Some have like 5 principles, others have 10, some other will have 3, but basically what it means is involve user in the entire design process. That would be it in one sentence.
Okay, so coming back to basics, let's talk about principles. You said it could be 5 or 5?
Yeah, well, depends. Like it depends on what side you will go. I mean, like usability. That
dark side or not? On which side are you?
In which like I don't know. I have here like Imperial Tattoo and Stormtrooper, but when it comes to like principles, well, principles, a lot of people can write, of course, their own principles and their own approach to it, because different people may have different opinions and approach to user-centered design. So one of those principles at the early stages is when you involve user, you need to learn the context in which he will use this application and understand his requirements for this application, his needs, his requirements, his the context in which you use this application. This is like the very early...
The main and...
Yeah, like in the very early beginning, you ask this question to find out the answers. But after that, you must actually like get this feedback that user had told you, or you just found out. And then, by this feedback that the user had given you, you must define the requirements and the design. That will actually be later implemented. So, what are the requirements that we must like fulfill? And then what the design would eventually look like with this within these requirements. However, when you do this and you incorporate those this feedback, you also keep close tab with the users. Like you ask them those requirements, are they clear to you? Are they what do you need, and everything like that. That would be like this. You do this all the time. You don't really. This is one of the other principles, which means take user and like have him by your side all the time. Well, maybe not all the time, but throughout the process. So you send him like to get his feedback on what is needed, what is not, and thanks to that, like if you do this like in iterative way, when you're designing something, not waterfall, which means that you will give everything at once, but you give some small parts of the application to the user and get this feedback. You are like mostly sure that what you are designing will actually fit the user's need, and you don't waste waste your time. And later on, you even when you are developing things, like in development stages, the user can be present during that time. Use the application, see everything is really like they thought it would be like when you are using actual product through those stages. This is actually, well, maybe not. Well, it's actually a part of that, when people can use this application in like real life, not through the prototype or something, because, well, most of the time the prototype will be slightly different from the actual application on some sorts. And the other thing is, it's actually this iterative approach to design, not waterfall. It's iterative, so you take a small chunk of the application and get feedback, do it again, or not. Maybe everything was perfect, however, it's unlikely. So most of the time, it would be like, I made this, you get feedback, you do this again, you take this a different approach to things.
So
redesign it.
principles are just about listening to your users, and that's it.
Well, yeah, like basically those actually, there are probably, you could find some principles that are well written and could be like some strict rules to this user-centered approach. Probably some people have them. Some websites have them. I think Adobe Experience Design even listed those things. However, I think it's always also important to just basically listen. So we have users that you listen to, and you can take different sometimes approaches to those things. But basically, keep the user all the time by your side and test it, research, and get feedback from the users as many times as you actually can.
Do you agree with those principles? Or would you maybe add something to those principles?
I definitely agree with them, because it's the best way to make sure that the application will be successful in terms of usability and user experience, because we aren't always sure if the application will have, for example, financial or commercial success. However, we can, if we take users, if we involve users in the process, we can be sure that we are making it as user-friendly as possible. In fact, I don't think if I could actually add something. I think if maybe we would separate it in a very small, other small steps, like for example, personas and empathy map and everything, then I would maybe add something. However, in general, those are the best principles actually you can get. You can get to know, and I believe it's at this very moment the most holistic, the most the best approach simply that you could have for designing user-friendly interfaces.
So let's listen to our users and build user-friendly interfaces.
Yeah, exactly. If you're whatever you are designing, you should always take users and talk with them, find them. They might be closer than you think. When I'm designing something, I sometimes found out that people in my family or my friends can be, for example, the users of this application. So I can ask them what do they want, what is irritating for them in other applications like that. I do my research. So basically, you can always ask out. And keep users very close to you, so then you know that what you are designing for those users is basically what they want.
So you're using this approach on your daily basis?
Yes, of course. Even right now, we are designing an app, and we are talking daily with the users that will be using this application. And we get the feedback, we ask them questions whether or not something should be possible or maybe something is unnecessary for them. We talk daily, and we ask them questions, we send them some chunks of the designs that we made. Sometimes even, you don't have to send whole mock-up or whole view. You can just send for example, a view contains of a calendar, menu, and some kind of for example, task list, for example, but you can only send the calendar and ask them if this calendar is right for them. Ask them about anything you doubt. You can ask the users, and they of course might not know because they aren't sure if they will need it or not. So then it will be best to put it in a perspective, in a context of some process, and then show them the prototype and ask them if within this context of this process, this would be beneficial to you, and if yes, then implement it.
I will show you a picture from internet, and you just say what you think.
This is basically appropriation and adoption of the users. The users may adopt your application in a different way that you didn't actually expected them to. You designed it in a certain way, and then the user adopted it in their own way, sort of. And this is actually not bad at all. If there are still users' expectations are met, then you simply cannot always predict what will happen. There's even this joke where the developer is making an app, which is like a pub app, and then he tests it. He orders one beer, he orders two beers, everything works. He orders 1,000 beers, works. and then the quality assurance engineer comes in and he tests this application, and he, okay, I want to order a beer. I want to order a beer with juice. Everything works. Okay, so then I want to order, for example, a dragon beer. Everything works. Great. Then we can get this application out to the production. And then a user comes in and he asks, "Where's the toilet?" And the app crashes. So basically, so you can't always predict how the users will use your application, but if they adopt it in their own way, everything's fine. No problem there.
What is the difference between good and bad design then?
It's very like a hard question because you can.
Yeah, it is.
Because bad design would be when the application doesn't meet any user requirements, any user needs. If this application actually doesn't do anything, then it's bad design. Of course, when we are talking about like user experience design, because there's other things like user interface, like maybe or any graphic design. However, when it comes to user experience design, if the application doesn't meet any of the user needs or requirements, and it's actually also hard to use, then it's basically a bad design. On the other hand, you can have application that actually does everything extremely great. It's very user friendly, it's very quick, it works perfectly, and it's very intuitive. However, it doesn't meet any user's needs, any requirements. We must remember that people, one thing is, for example, they pay for our app. Like maybe it's a one-time deal, like they pay and they get it. Maybe it's a subscription. This is one thing they are paying. The other thing they are actually paying us is their time. When they are using this app, they spend time on it. And nobody will spend time on an app that doesn't actually meet any of his needs or requirements.
How many hours are spent on Candy Crush type games?
Candy Crush or Instagram, for example.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think is the need that actually Instagram satisfies? In your opinion?
People want to show themselves and watch others.
I think that at some point maybe, but also this just idea of scrolling in boredom. It's not really a need that you actually like have, but this is something. This need is when you are bored.
It's satisfying.
You just scroll through this Instagram or you watch the stories. This may be one of those needs, but basically you always must meet like certain need. Like for example, when Instagram introduced stories, they found out that almost nobody posts photos on normal wall anymore. Like they stopped doing that. A lot of people just post on stories, and not many people anymore post their photos. Those people that post their photos right now are either influencers or photographers. Those are the people that will probably post photos.
True. And talking about scrolling, look at my phone. Do you see that? See? There is a place, and I'm a professional scroller. I think.
Okay.
See? Do you see that?
You have us. Okay. Yeah. So you know how this like.
I know how it works.
Yeah. Facebook anymore. Facebook has this problem because Facebook doesn't satisfy any needs anymore. Like Messenger does from Facebook, but Facebook itself, it stopped doing that because Instagram is for photos and there are other applications that satisfy other needs, and people decided that they maybe not want to use Facebook anymore.
And that is why we have to invest in that, in investigations and in UX design, right?
Just do a lot of user research because it doesn't. Because every product, like we're going away a little bit from user-centered design. However, every product has its life cycle. There's something called product life cycle, and there's in the beginning you have like small. This line here is quite small, but marketing, sales teams, they are selling your product, and at some point you have this moment where a lot of people finds out about your applications, and there is something like I tell you about this application, I tell someone else, they install it, stuff like that, and then it goes up, and then there will be like not so many people anymore because in time this will be more flat, this line. However, there will always be a decline because other applications will appear. People will stop using it for maybe just what Facebook, because Facebook stopped making them, stopped satisfying their needs. And then you have this decline. So when this is why you always this user-centered process, maybe you were right, maybe it doesn't actually end, because at some point you still have to make user research, then again see if what we can do again for those users, how the application might simply change in some ways, what else we can do. But there's of course, like you making an application like calculator, there isn't much you can actually do with it. But for example, I don't know, a few years ago, I bought an application called Sleep Cycle, which helps you sleep. Basically, what it did back then was it made a window of 30 minutes before your actually alarm clock to wake you up when you are like not so asleep, so to speak, like when you are not that sleepy. This wakes you up at this very moment. Mm-hmm. Right now, they are providing you with multiple other things. Well, they simply had to evolve, and a lot of applications must do that, because at some point we must ask ourselves if those needs that we were satisfying like a few years back, are we still satisfying them, or maybe something changed, maybe people don't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So then you should not then, because it's always better to prevent than to cure, sort of. So it's best to just...
What wise words.
Yeah, so always do your research like every now and then to see if your application is actually still satisfying and fulfilling their needs and requirements of the users.
It's very nice to sit and talk, but unfortunately we have to finish our talk.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
I had a really great time.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and see you next time in next Expert Zone Talks. You can also check other videos on our YouTube channel, and of course visit our website frontendhouse.com, and see you next time.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you.